Hello everyone. Write to me if you can see and hear me. This is my first ever stream, so I apologize in advance if there are any technical issues. Everything is clear and loud. Great. A new concept of a crypto wallet. A wallet that I started writing for myself. Let's talk about the types of crypto wallets, why I decided to create another one, and the main principles behind this new crypto wallet. And we'll also talk a bit about passive income in crypto. Let me share my screen. Here's how you can share the screen. These are notes for myself. You can skip reading them. Where did the desire to create a new crypto wallet come from? It seems like there are already so many. The first reason is that most, if not all of these wallets, at least the ones I've seen, are aimed at the general consumer. They are made for the public. This means they're all designed in a certain way. They try to help someone not very knowledgeable in crypto to work with it. To take those first steps in the crypto world, trying to hide all the technical complexities and details, and give them a manageable way to interact with crypto. And this works more or less fine until crypto stops being just a hobby for you and it becomes your profession, your daily activity. Then you, like me, have completely different requirements for wallets. Many things I see in them are inconvenient for me. They keep coming up. I periodically check out new wallets, and there are so many now. Some I like for one thing, others for another, but there's none that feels just right, like I'd want it to be. Well, the king of all wallets is MetaMask as a browser add-on, and there are many issues with MetaMask too. I don't want to go into detail criticizing MetaMask, but you can find plenty of information online about its problems. My personal issues with MetaMask are first, it has some technical shortcomings, which isn't the main thing, but the main issue is that it's not aimed at professional users. What do I mean by a professional user? Wallets, each with dozens of accounts, it becomes very hard to manage in MetaMask. Your account list gets very long. Understanding how to operate it, which hardware wallet it relates to, all this functionality related to heavy crypto use, MetaMask just isn't designed for it. And it all becomes the features they make for the public, like calculating the total wallet value in my case, cause everything to freeze for a long time because MetaMask tries to get information for each of my registered accounts. Everything freezes, features don't work, and sometimes crash. There's a big problem with this. The second reason is that I think it's not quite right to implement a plugin in a browser. The browser itself is a very unstable environment, very heavy. It's hard to make something work well. When we do it in a complex structure like a plugin, it becomes even harder. When we try to pack a lot of functionality into this plugin, like MetaMask does, my argument is that it's not that the programmers at MetaMask are bad, not at all. It's just that the environment, the task they're trying to solve, and the way they're trying to solve it, in my opinion, is wrong. The third reason is that when you use any public wallets, all your activity is quite easily traceable, even though, say, MetaMask is open source. And supposedly it doesn't have any, I hope it doesn't have any blatant components that report anything. That's not. The point is that you access a centralized site and all the functionality MetaMask adds only increases the ability to trace everything you do. For example, when they add an exchange inside the wallet, all these operations go through them. What does this mean? It means all your addresses start getting pinged, marked with your IP address, so your anonymity starts to drop sharply. I prefer that not to happen. What else? Yes, fourth, there's a lack of some functionality that I, as a professional, need. In the last argument I wrote here, there's another very important reason why people do things. They do it because they want to understand something. And at some point I realized I'd love to dig into how these wallets are structured, how they work, what the challenges are, why they're all a bit problematic. And this desire to understand everything led to wanting to say, well, guys, I'll write my own wallet. I'll write it the way I want. Okay, the next slide, it's also important in this discussion. It goes as follows. I've had this concept of a certain way to do software projects in my head for a long time. I've spent my life working on commercial products, products made for other people. I know very well how it's all structured, and there was always a desire to try building projects in a completely different way. What do you mean? Sometimes you want to make all the project decisions yourself without considering the consumer at all. In developing a commercial product, this is generally impossible. Okay, let's go back to where I was. There was nothing on these slides except notes for myself. So yes, sometimes you want to distance yourself from the desire to gain consumers and focus on what you're doing and try to make all the project decisions yourself. This leads to a significant change in how software is written. I thought about this for a long time. I couldn't come up with a name for it. It occurred to me that maybe SelfWare is a good name because it's like self-programming. I program the product for myself. There's something a bit medieval about this approach because it's from before we had a common market where a product needed many users. In ancient times, it was different. There was a master who did something, figured out how to mix clay. It's not that it's a big secret, but that's how he worked in his workshop. The workshop is open. Apprentices come, watch if you like it. Take this method, do it too. I wanted to make a wallet in this mode. Try not to make a product for mass consumers, but try to make a product for one single consumer. Myself. Make a wallet that I would want to have. This concept is somewhat reminiscent of, if you draw a parallel with cinema, there's commercial cinema, and then there's something like art house. What is art house? It's when a director tries to make a film and solve some personal problem. And for him, success is not, at least he doesn't set as a criterion for success, the number of tickets sold. He solves his own problem. And this approach in auteur cinema has its own task. It's not about serving as many people as possible, but about trying new concepts, new views. And often such art house cinema turns out to be very influential and then helps in commercial cinema to do things differently. But calling such an approach in programming, like art house programming, seems wrong to me. There's some aesthetic ambition here, but we're not talking about aesthetics. We're talking purely about the developer making the product exclusively for one user himself. It's clear that such a project can only be done when you finance it yourself. That is, you don't take money from anyone for development. You do everything yourself. Moreover, in this approach, a very important component is that it must be open source. What do you mean? Some usefulness for others. Someone might look at such a product and say, oh, this is complete nonsense, but this is an interesting idea. And some parts or approaches may be useful to other people, and it's very important that this usefulness is immediately available. That is, if the product is written in open source mode, Then all the code is available. Take whatever you like, use it. There are no restrictions, no payment. It's like a contribution to the programming community. I wanted to write such a wallet in self-aware mode. What happened next? Then I started reasoning. Actually, we start from the point where I don't like, well, let's say I don't like MetaMask. I start thinking, how can I make a wallet differently? So the first thing that comes to mind is that it's generally wrong, as I've already said, to do this inside a browser. An important part of this project is that we will make the wallet not inside the browser but separately as a standalone application. A standalone application is easier to write, easier to make stable, and you can pack as much functionality into it as you want, and we're not limited by the small sandbox where all browser plugins run. Then the next very important thing. This is now typical art house. I don't like interfaces as such. I wanted to make this wallet in command line mode. As a programmer, I find it a comfortable environment. For the average user, it's like black and white cinema. It's impossible to live with because there's no interface as such. There's a command line where you can type some commands. For me, it's very comfortable. Why? Because I always have a lot of tension that for some strange reason, I have to remember a lot about how your product's interface is arranged. So let's say I open MetaMask. I have a simple task just to check my list of addresses. And I have to remember to click here, then here, then here, and there I'll see some list. Or for example, I need to check the browser settings. I know I have to remember to go to settings, there's a special section, open it, and if I click there, it'll appear. It's long, tedious, and there's a lot to remember. I think it's much more comfortable to have a command line where I can get addresses, see addresses, write blockchain, and see everything in the blockchain. So the next step is, if we're making a command line wallet, we want to help ourselves a bit. If it's just a basic command line where you have to remember commands and keys, it's hard and there's a lot to remember. So we wanted to make a command line that helps me not remember all these commands. So create a hint system. When I start typing commands, it immediately suggests all possible options, commands, parameters, so that even though it's still a command line, it's advanced. Next step. So what to write it in? Well, I have a favorite language, Go, and its beauty is that it translates to all platforms. Moreover, it's an advanced language in this sense. You can compile a program on one platform for another platform. That's it. And I have quite a lot of experience with it, so my choice was pretty simple. So we're writing the wallet in Go. Next, well, obviously we want the wallet to be quite open to support a bunch of different blockchains. Explorers be able to update token prices in different places. That's the whole setup. Yes, I can already see it. First of all, I'm impressed that people actually came and are leaving comments. Thank you all so much. I'm not a real YouTuber yet. I can't keep up with talking and reading, but I'll definitely read everything, maybe later, and try to respond to everything. In short, some principles have formed. And based on these principles, I started writing this. In what mode did I start writing this? I have many other concerns. So this is a project in my free time. In the time free from other projects, when I had an hour or an hour and a half, I slowly started writing it for myself. So what I'm going to show you today is not even some art house film, it's what I brought to the set. The product itself hasn't been born yet, but there's already something to show. It's not just words anymore, it's some reality. So let me do. How to do it? Like this. So here's our terminal. So what does the wallet look like? I just take it in the command line and run it. Moreover, I run it directly, compile and run. So I named the wallet Web3Pro. Why not? The name is good. We can talk about Web3 separately sometime. It's simply structured with a terminal. So how well can you see this? Let me make it bigger. So what's the beauty of the command line? It's that in the interface, it's very flexible. You can increase or decrease its size. All these things work right away. I really like to pin this thing to the edge, so it's kind of pinned to the right side of the screen. Something like this. Well, not necessarily. So we have a command line where you can type some commands. So what else? So below the command line, like in browsers, there's a small hint showing what's going to happen. Well, to start, you can type the command help. See all the commands implemented in this wallet. As you understood, as soon as I start typing something, the system starts suggesting. For example, I have, let's say, a set of commands related to the wallet. Open wallet, create wallet, close wallet, modify. I start typing the command wallet. Wallet means wallet. I can press it entirely. Each command has its abbreviation. It's enough to press one letter. After that, we can choose any command. Accordingly, you can select it here from the list. So, you don't need to remember which parameters each command has. We will now try to create a new wallet. We are making a new wallet. Let's name it. So we open the wallet and a status window lit up at the top, but there's nothing in it yet, so there's nothing there. What are we trying to do next? Look, this approach to the wallet, as I mentioned, is not aimed at amateurs. A place where you can perform your professional crypto tasks. Therefore, everything is at hand, but it's all very flexible and requires some setup. We start by wanting to work with some blockchains, so we need to add some blockchain to the wallet. Let's add two, so there's a blockchain command. It had a short form. Blockchain, add. So basically, I listed a bunch of them, most of which are useless. But see how this quick typing works. It's enough to start typing a parameter. It quickly filters through all possibilities. For example, I start typing SL. Accordingly, it filters based on what I entered. By the start of the line, by the middle, it doesn't matter. This way, everything in the system is selected. For instance, select an address. Accordingly, what I need to select appears. So we want to add a blockchain. Blockchain added. Accordingly, if we just execute the blockchain command, we will see a list of all blockchains available. So just in case, I'll show you what blockchain editing looks like. You'll see that there's actually a lot here, so I'll just list for those interested that it's actually a much more complex thing. Configuring the blockchain contains more parameters than MetaMask because they are all really needed by those who actually use cryptocurrency. So, look, well, there's Ethereum. It has RPC, which is the entry point where all APIs fit. there's always a chain ID. This is the number that identifies a specific Ethereum blockchain. There's the name of the base currency. The base currency is Ether, ETH. Next, now we move on to more interesting things that aren't on this ask. Here you can also specify the address of the wrapped token, because often in many blockchain operations, the base token is used. So there is actually a base token. We'll have a bit of technical stuff since we're diving into the professional part. Don't worry if you have any questions. You can ask me again, but I might start using a bit of professional language. You can pull me back and I'll explain such things. So there's a special version. Each base token in the system also has an additional version in the form of a wrapped RC token. It's very necessary for DeFi operations, for some, and it's correct to write it directly into the blockchain parameters. Each blockchain can have multiple versions of wrapped tokens, which is a separate issue. You can always change it. If you don't like one, switch to another. But usually there's one that's used in the vast majority of places. So the next thing added, it's a multi-call contract. What is it? It's a very interesting thing too, which is important to keep in mind. See? This tool lets us optimize how fast we pull data from the blockchain. For instance, you need to read 4 different parameters from the blockchain. Check my balance, see how many tokens I have staked, and maybe check liquidity elsewhere. So I need to read data from various parts of the blockchain. The simple way is to go to the blockchain 4 times and ask for this info each time. But there's a more efficient way to get this info in the blockchain. Instead of asking 4 times, you can bundle all 4 requests into one, call a special contract called a multi-call contract, and it will return info on all 4 parameters in one go. This greatly speeds up how we work with the blockchain. So my wallet can also work with the blockchain like this, speeding up the process. Also, we have a concept, if you recall. In MetaMask, there's a parameter called the Explorer address. What's this? This is when we need to check an address in Explorer. We can click a button and jump to the Explorer site. There's a similar parameter here too. Besides this parameter, you can specify extra URLs for Ethereum, as each Explorer has an API, a way to call it programmatically. This is crucial if we want to interact with the Explorer. My wallet can do a nice thing I wanted in a wallet. It can download the source text of contracts from the Explorer and show them. To enable this feature, specify the address to a special API Explorer in the blockchain. Some APIs are open and free. For some, you need to specify a token to work with them. In most cases, you can get it for free, but if your traffic isn't too heavy, you can get such a token for free. If you have a lot of operations, for a small fee, you can access the Explorer with all its functionality. You can also enter this token here. Let's add another blockchain, which we will also use in the demonstration. So Pulse Chain, we've added Pulse Chain. Now we can see that we actually have 2 blockchains in the wallet. All right, let's move on. So inside each blockchain, we have different tokens. Different blockchains have different tokens. There are many, good and varied. There's a token command. Its short form is just the letter T. So if we press it, we'll see a list of all the tokens our wallet knows about. As soon as we added the blockchain, we actually added 2 tokens right away. First, we added the base token, the native token, and second, we added its wrapped form. So, we have 2 blockchains, and immediately we have 4 tokens that the wallet knows about. What's the most interesting thing to know about tokens? Not the most interesting. What's interesting to know about tokens? It's interesting to know how much they are worth. Accordingly, you need to learn how to get the price of these tokens from somewhere. There are several places online where you can find this price. So I currently have a wallet in its current form. It supports two sources for token prices. First, there's a site called CoinMarketCap. And second, there's DexScreener. There's a site with tons of, yes, exactly, yes, that's the one, DexScreener. So how is it set up? Look, right here. Yeah, about a bit more of the general layout. It's not just a command line. Actually, I rigged it up so all these things work like in a browser. These are all active links. You can hover over each of these things, click, and it'll do something. Hovering over a compressed address reveals the full version below. This is a very important thing because many wallets often have a problem with how to view the address. Secondly, if you just click on it, it gets copied right away. Very often, you just need to copy the address. Here, everything is always at your fingertips. And accordingly, all these buttons work too. You can press a button and edit everything there. This button is very interesting. It resembles a broadcast. This icon means broadcast price. What can we do? We can try to connect to one of the price providers and try to get prices from it. Well, for example, let's start with Ether itself. Here we go to this button and press it. What happens? The following thing happens. The wallet can work with these two sites. It goes there, the interface is complex, but it tries to find what we need. When I pressed Ethereum, it went to my market cap and found this token. Now all I need to do is press this button to connect the broadcast, after which this price feeder is connected. Now if I update, the prices are updated, and if I check the price again, we'll see that the token and its wrapped form have a price, and it appeared immediately. We try to get the same for users. This seems to be the correct price. So here are our 4 tokens. They exist. We know about each of them, with which market cap we take this thing, and what price I need to appear. We have a record of all transactions, easily accessible and convenient. So we made an update. Here are all our prices, and it really grew by 8%. Good deed. Yes, a very important thing about the numbers that are visible on the screen. So look, in crypto technologies, there is one fundamental difference from regular finance. It lies in the fact that the digit capacity of tokens is very different. That is, sometimes there are billions of tokens that are worth nothing, but it doesn't matter how much they cost. Sometimes tokens, each token can be divided into many, many, many parts. Often this many, many, many is up to, that is, it can be 1/quadrillionth part of some token, and it's still a significant number. Therefore, there is a big problem with how to display these numbers. I handled it in the wallet as follows. I show all the numbers on the screen. I always show them in a way to display the maximum number of significant digits. What does it mean? For example, if we look at any number here, for example, the price for ISF, here it says 2.44. What does it mean? It means 2440. That is, all the numbers on the screen are in this format. On one hand, they become compact, and we can see them. In a normal format, that is, if we are a bit confused about what this means, what this nanopart is. It's 1/1,000,000th part, you won't immediately figure it out. But if you point the arrow down, we'll see that in fact the price is $0.4. And accordingly, if I click on it, I can copy this thing in a completely normal format. That is, any number, any amount, any balance can be copied from the screen in a normal format and then pasted into some table or wherever we want. That's how all the numbers are arranged. So let's move on slowly. What's next? The big problem with wallets is working with hardware wallets. Why is it a big problem? Because the wallets themselves, USB ports. Guys, it's a tough thing. It works very unstably, very noisy. All devices work on different standards. Some have different ones. So I spent quite a lot of time making some layer for working with USB. It starts with the fact that there is just a USB command where you can poke and just see all the devices connected to USB. This is not related to crypto, but sometimes what happens next? Look, for example, I take my Trezor, connect USB. The following thing happens. The components responsible for USB recognize it, and for this device, it opens a separate window in the interface. That is, here at the top, we can see that there is a hardware wallet like Trezor. It has a serial number. It has some name that is written right inside the device. We can see what version of firmware is there and some very nice parameters, whether a passphrase is used. I'll say a couple of words about it later, but now you'll see what I'm talking about. What to do now? If we do USB again, we'll see that our device is connected. What does it mean? It means that now we can add some signer to our wallet. What is a signer? A signer is a component that can sign transactions. So, who can sign transactions? A hardware wallet can sign transactions, but there are also software wallets where we memorize our mnemonic directly in the wallet. The Web3Pro wallet can work with both. How is this set up? To work with signers, there is a team of signers. It has a shortened form, just the letter S. If we just leave S, we'll see there's nothing, no signers. Let's try to add one. We can go and add one. It asks what type of signer we want to add. For example, we want to add a Trezor signer. The system sees a Trezor named DemoTR is plugged into the computer. I say go ahead and add it. Look at what's happening here. The dialog closes, and we can add it. This isn't obvious to the average user. But for someone who does this seriously, this is necessary. What am I talking about? Many hardware wallets have another wallet that is its copy. I have a practice where for every hardware wallet I have, I also have another one ready with the same keys. If this key doesn't work, this device is broken, or something's wrong, and I need a transaction, I always have another one with the same mnemonic inside. This means each signer can have a backup device. It might have a different name or serial number. But I know it's a backup for this wallet. When I add a signer, I can specify in the list and choose another one that it's a copy of. This is more convenient for me to manage them. They are in a box. There are many of them, well, sort of by numbers. First, second, third, fifth. The system remembers the third is a copy of the fifth. When I need to sign a transaction, the wallet will tell me to insert any of them to sign the transaction. This is a tricky spot in MetaMask because MetaMask doesn't remember well which hardware wallet has which address. A common problem is when we try to sign a transaction with the wrong wallet. A funny thing happens because the transaction is signed but doesn't work. This wallet remembers the exact match of which address belongs to which wallet. Since we're adding our first signer, it's not a copy of anything, just a key. Here it is. Now we have a signer in the list. What can we do next? Next, we can get as many addresses as we want from this signer. Each signer supports a group of addresses. What can we do? We can go to the address signer. Yes, and this is also a professional thing. Each such signer device is fully defined by the mnemonic we entered. With some caveats, the mnemonic and also passwords. Some devices, in addition to the mnemonic, have an extra part in the form of a passphrase. Well, it doesn't matter. In some form, we define it. This thing allows us to determine the root private key. From this root private key, you can get a huge number of addresses. The problem is we can get these new addresses in different ways. And the way these paths are organized, they are different. Because they are different, there's often this problem when you enter the same mnemonic in a ledger and then in a Trezor in some version, and you get different addresses. Why? Because they use different derivation paths. In my wallet, you can choose any of these derivation paths, or you can write your own without any problems. Out of all the ones available, the industry has determined there is a default one that most wallets currently support. In the early stages, when this definition wasn't there yet, some parts were very important. How do we get addresses from our CIDR? Well, let's get them in the usual default way. Look at what's happening. So to perform this operation, we need to enter the Trezor PIN. Now I'll remember it. Okay. There we entered it. It worked. Once more, I must have pressed cancel. That's what I was talking about. Look, Trezor is designed to support this extra complexity. Besides the mnemonic, you can use it or add extra text. And Trezor always asks about this every time I do a transaction. In my settings, there's a checkbox at the top. I don't know if you can see my mouse. In the Trezor window, you can use this passphrase checkbox or not. Yes, exactly. Yes, the numbers are shown on the Trezor screen, but on the screen there are just buttons without numbers, so they're all mixed up. So based on the buttons I press on the screen, the computer can't figure out which PIN I used. Well, if you remove this checkbox, the standard one will be used. So what happened? We extracted all the addresses from our signer, which will be called first for derivation path 1, second for 2. What happened? We added addresses to our wallet. Now with the command they have addresses, we can click edit, change the name, delete them, and we always know which hardware wallet this address came from. But as you might guess, when I press in my real wallet, the command and a lot of addresses pop up. So let's see what's next on my slides. So I needed to show Sanyo USB addresses. Showed everything. Moving on. So I've already talked about the format of the numbers. Yes, let's move on to tokens. Let's discuss tokens. Next up, I've already mentioned a bit about tokens, that we have a list of tokens, but of course we can add any number of version 20 tokens. Adding them is quite simple. You can just click add in which blockchain and just write the address and it will be added. But there's a nicer way to do it. Let's do it differently. Let me show you a bit how it all connects with the Explorer. With the browser. So look, let's launch some browser. Let's take, for example, Chrome. So look at what's happening. When it connects, First of all, in the browser it's a small plugin in the browser. It's a minimalist plugin. It has no functionality. So it's also called Web3 Pro. And when the browser tries to connect to the wallet, it happens explicitly. So you can't connect to the wallet implicitly. Because you have to keep in mind that it would be a big hole if any application could quietly connect to my wallet and try to do something. So every time I launch the browser and it tries to connect to my wallet, I have to do it in the wallet. All right, now this browser is connected to my wallet. So how does this browser look? Let's go to some website. Well, naturally, let's go to my favorite one called Saba. So here it is, Salam. So look, the following happens. A request comes to the wallet, whether to allow this specific application to connect to my wallet. I say, okay, let's connect. What does this mean? It means the wallet keeps a tidy list of all the apps we work with. This app list can be accessed with the app command. Right now, just one app named Saba has been added. Once we added it, a new window appeared in our wallet. Web application. So the web app has two key parameters. First, which blockchain we're using. Second, which addresses this app can access. Why? Because the Sava site works with the Pulse Chain blockchain, so it needs to switch. We switched the app to Pulse Chain, but haven't added any address yet. What can we do now? We can add an address here. For example, add our first address here. Here's what happens. See? In this app, we see exactly that By the way, the 0 address is wrong. It shouldn't. I'll fix that. That's definitely a factor. Don't do it. It's not good. There. Well, it doesn't matter. What are we talking about now? What we have is each app has a list of addresses it can see. In MetaMask, it's the same, but not. So for the average user, it's not clear that as a wallet owner, I allow an app to see my addresses. This is the part I'm really concerned about because I don't want many sites I visit to know which addresses I manage. This is quite sensitive information, so what's happening here? Here's what happens. We can add. Let's add both addresses here. Now application. SavApp has access. I'll say right away, working with the browser is the weakest point right now, which isn't fully completed, so it periodically loses connection. And as I told you, we're still on the set. This is far from a product. And for now, some should perceive it as a concept of how I see a wallet should work. So I'll periodically refresh the page to bring it back up. So look, now we're connected to the very first address listed here. It ends with 350. From all the addresses available to the app, you can always choose the one that's currently in use. Kind of promote it. This operation of promoting an address to become the main one seemed very fitting to use the queen icon because it's naturally like promoting a pawn to a queen. So we can promote the second address forward. Now the second address is here. So ideally it should have changed itself, but it didn't. But I'll refresh it because it lost connection again. Now we're in the most unfinished part of the wallet. Now 2 accordingly, 8. So look, what happens next? What's the fundamental difference? Now it will become clear between MetaMask and this Web3 Pro. Web3 Pro is a separate application. It has nothing to do with the browser. This means that if I chose to use the second address for the Saba app site, It doesn't matter which browser I open, it will be the same in all of them. So as soon as I connect to the wallet, all browsers will report the same address simultaneously. In reality, I'm not controlling the tab in the browser like it's set up in MetaMask. I'm essentially managing the application, no matter which browser I access it from. All right, let's try to do something interesting next. Let's try to perform some operation. First, we need to return to the first one because otherwise, we won't have any money. Here's our test site, 76. Let's try to make some kind of sacrifice. Now, I think this is the most interesting part. This is essentially what it all started for. Now I'm going to try to execute an operation on the blockchain. What's happening now? This confirmation window pops up in my wallet. Look at what's written here, how it's set up. First of all confirmation windows in the wallet are set up in such a way that they have a countdown, like a timeout. If I don't touch anything, it legally ends as if I pressed cancel. This is also one of the problems in MetaMask because if you start an operation and do nothing with it, it often leads to it doing something unexpected. Here, if I miss this thing and do nothing, it will eventually press cancel on its own. What happens next? Next, I look at what's written here. So, I see that 20,000 pulses are currently less than $1, which is 0.95. I hover the cursor, and below I see how much it is in normal numbers. Next, I see the contract we're trying to call. I don't know anything about this contract. I'm working with it for the first time. So I see it's blinking at me and I know nothing about it. I can, in principle, name it somehow. I can click and name it somehow. This is the first thing I can do with it. Next, if I know everything about it and trust it, I can press this button with the shield, like saying I trust it. It will stop blinking. But that's a weak thing. The most interesting thing I can do is ask the wallet to go to the Explorer and fetch all the information about this contract. There's a download button, I press it now, and a green one popped up below. Now, yes, we'll talk about all this. Thanks for the questions. Look at what just happened. Now the wallet went to the Explorer with just one button press and fetched all the information about this contract. In this contract information, two things are very important. The first thing is what's called ABI. ABI is a kind of binary interface of how contracts are called, the details of how it's set up. For non-professionals, I'll explain the importance of this thing. As soon as I get this ABI information, I can understand what parameters are actually being called. So as soon as I got this information, I can immediately show you that before there were just numbers, and now it directly says the deposit method is being called. So I directly know it's being called, and it has no parameters. So it's directly calling the deposit from this contract. What's next? Besides the API, the entire source text of this contract was downloaded, and I can open it with just one button. I can press the button that reminds me of Visual Studio and directly open this entire contract. Here it is right here. Find the deposit function right here. This thing is very for professionals, but for me, it's extremely necessary because I want to know what I'm calling. So actually now, if I have to confirm this transaction, this is the function. It will be called on the blockchain. I can look at it and make sure it exists and what it does. If I can understand this, it's very important to me. So, another feature. Look, our time is running out and I'm still talking and I need a bit more time. Just press this counter once and it will become large again. I need more time. I just pressed it and it's like the timeout increased. It's designed so that if I miss this message or forget about it, it will close gently. That's how we work with the contract. All the information about the contract pops up and you can view it. And now, having seen everything, I can confidently say I trust this contract. Next time, If I try to send something to it, it will be green and won't blink anymore. Well, you can change the fee, but these are standard wallet functions. Here's something else I'm curious about. So we won't send the transaction itself. So what else haven't we looked at? Oh, 1 second. I won't show the browser demo because it struggles with one. Well, funny things like, first you need to turn on the sound. Sound only plays when something requiring confirmation pops up, like a... There's a list of these sounds you can check out. No, that's not the sound. They play somehow. Well, you can choose the one you like. Yes, and there are also color themes because some might find these colors annoying. There's a list to view. You can see all the colors and adjust them if you want. Right now, to adjust them, you need to recompile, but it's not a hard problem to add. And the last thing I want to show is the table, which I didn't want to show anyone until I made it, is the support for the third version of liquidity. In a nutshell, in crypto, in smart contracts, in blockchains with smart contracts, there's a way to earn passive income. In various ways. One way is providing liquidity. So if you provide liquidity, the gas selection algorithm is also a... Yes, yes, yes. We can talk about that separately later. So if you provide liquidity, you earn some interest for doing so. In crypto terms, you acquire more tokens. And you don't lose them, you don't spend them, you actually gain. You get passive income. For me, it's a big part of my life. I dedicate a lot of time to it. I'm deeply involved. And it's important to me. And there's a big problem because there are tons of different sites, tons of different blockchains, and, well, I'll tell you later that I literally sometimes forget where I put things. Literally no joke. So I really wanted a wallet where I could see everything at hand. How I set it up. So I have support for the third version of liquidity. For this, there's the LPv3 command. For simplicity, just v3. At the moment, I have no positions. Let's try to add an exchange here. We take v3, say add, I use an exchange. One of the exchanges I use in the third version, a provider called 9inch appeared on the blockchain. And now some magic will happen because the feature of the third version of liquidity is that all my positions are written inside the blockchain itself. This means I can get a list of my own from the blockchain. Why I didn't make the second version? Well, for two reasons, I'll mention them too. In the third version, you can actually go to the blockchain and get a list of my own positions. That means you can perform a discovery operation. Let's try to do it now. If I go to the V3 team and press the discovery button. Discovery in the pulse chain. By the way, look, a few words about the interface. Look, you can enter all 4 parameters for this command. Perform discovery of my positions in the third liquidity on the pulse chain blockchain at the 9inch exchange, but I don't have to fill it all out. For example, I can skip the last parameter, then it will perform discovery across the entire pulse chain, or I can skip pulse chain. It will do it across all blockchains I have. So what's happening now? The program actually goes to the blockchain and knowing all my addresses retrieves all my positions from the blockchain. It found one single position, which is correct, it's there. It's located in a wallet called First, some positions. Look, now we can just see this list of positions. Here's what happened here. Look at this thing. It found some mysterious position that I once put there. This position has 2 tokens, so it's a pair between 2 token exchanges. One of them is a wrapped pulse. I see it, and the other token is something my wallet doesn't know about. So I don't have this token in my wallet yet. It's very simple. I just need to press these 3 things, and it will figure out which token to add, and it will add it there. So the token was added. Now, if we do B3 again, we'll see that it's actually a pair between the 9-inch token and the wrapped pulse. And in this pair, we see everything. We see what liquidity is there. We see what percentage has already been accrued to us. Gain is how much percentage I've accumulated. Now look at the following. If we take the list of our tokens that we have now, we have a 9-inch token here, but we don't know what its price is. It's exactly the same thing we know how to do. We press this price transmission, and it lifts all the pairs from the desk screener where this token is traded. And here we see what the liquidity volume is, what the last price is, and so on. If you look here, you'll happily see that the very first position actually has the wrong price. So it's actually some other token, just named the same way. So what are we doing here? We're doing the same thing as if we went to the deck screener website and wrote this very 9-inch token there. It would also give us this list, and we would choose something, a chart we want to see. Here we can see, I know it's around 6 millions. I just click on it, and now we have the price. Now, if we look at the token, we'll see that it actually has a price. And now, if we look at our position in liquidity, we'll see the last column gain in dollars. So I've accumulated as much as 0.04. Naturally, I set up this position a couple of days ago for demonstration and put in like $3, something like that. During this time, a small column has accumulated. So what else can be done? You can open a separate window for the list of my positions in liquidity. Just do 2-3 runs. We have a window that lights up at the top of which we have this entire list. It's constantly in view. It updates itself with prices, with changes, calculates total profit. It's always in my sight. I can come in the morning and see. A very important thing, the green light that's on. Because we won't dive into details now, but when we handle liquidity in the 3rd version, we set a specific price range where if the price exceeds this range, it's like a red light will come on and our profit will stop growing. If the lights are green, it means the actual price is within the range where we loaded this liquidity. And that's basically it. I'll explain why there's no second version again. In the second version of liquidity, I also have positions, although it's not about me right now. The issue is that in the second liquidity, you can't get a list of my positions from the blockchain. In fact, companies like Uniswap have their own API that you can call to get your position, but it's not decentralized. This means I have to go to them myself, say, here's my address, and they'll give you a list of your positions. So for now, I don't know what to do with the second liquidity. We'll see what happens with it. And the second reason why I don't want to deal with the second liquidity is because many of the positions in the second version then are actually sent to farming. They're not even in your wallet. They exist in some farm to get extra profit. Now it seems I've completely switched to jargon. For most people, this will be completely incomprehensible. Don't worry about it. Just skip it. You can. So basically, this is how a wallet is gradually being born. So in my free time, over about 3 months, this thing was born. I'm showing it to you today purely as a concept of how I see a wallet should be in the sense of how it would be convenient and good for me. It's definitely not ready for me to recommend anyone to use it today. Today, it's more of a conversation for, probably. Programmers who are interested in seeing how it's set up. So this entire wallet is already available today as open source. 2 days ago, I opened this project to the public. You can go in there, take a look. There's already a lot of useful stuff in it. For now, it's mostly useful for programmers because everything I've talked about is implemented there. You can go and take a look. With Trezor, like with Ledger, how I get prices, how I work with the third liquidity. Regarding the third liquidity, a very important note is that it turned out to be much more complicated than I anticipated. But I must say I'm absolutely impressed with how Uniswap's contracts are written. I would even say that if in some universities, I think it should be an absolutely mandatory case to analyze line by line how these contracts are written. They are phenomenally well written, simply genius. There are a lot of interesting solutions, but because they are so complex, it's very difficult to even calculate what I showed you, how much profit has accumulated. Because I'm showing you profit that hasn't been realized yet, there's no place in the blockchain where it's written how much has accumulated for me. To calculate this thing, you need to carefully go into many different contracts, extract different information, then very cleverly calculate it all, and only then calculate how much profit you'll get if you go and press play today. So it's a pretty complex operation. It's all open source too. You can go and see openly how it works. Well, that's probably all I wanted to tell you today. Let me try to read your comments if there's anything there. If there are any questions, I'll try to answer them. I'd like to see a wallet written in Rust. Maybe, guys, we are living in a wonderful time. We have AI. I'm almost convinced that if you put all my original text in and ask it to rewrite it in Rust, who knows, maybe it'll rewrite it. Mostly a joke, but some is serious. So we fixed that not on slides. So for regular users, a module with a graphical interface. Look, can we make a version with a graphical interface for regular users out of this, on top of this? Maybe we can. The question is, I'm not interested in that, not at all. So if someone wants to, go ahead. No restrictions. Good luck. But I'm not interested in, I think it would, in a sense, kill the concept itself. Why am I needed here if you're making a simple version on top of me? Just make a simple version right away. I don't really understand why all this. So, Trezor and so on. Got it, cool features. It would be nice to set up number display or auto conversion. Use this wallet for portfolio calculations, for example. Look, a portfolio, yes, you can calculate a portfolio just like I calculate everything by positions in the third version of liquidity. You can basically make a portfolio. That is, roughly speaking, calculate all balances for all tokens. In tokens, there is, in the token team, there is yes, in the token team, there is a balance command. So we'll go here again, just in case. Let's go to our wallet, open our JAM-A1. There is such a parameter, a balance option. You can go to the balance and see, for any token, how much balance we have on which wallet. Here in our first wallet, there are so many of these pulses. There's no problem making a command that will create a neat table for all addresses and all tokens. How many of which tokens are at which addresses? This is very easy to do. Absolutely not a problem. For me, this wouldn't be a very important feature. Why? Because a significant part of my balances is in some liquidity pools. It's not on my addresses. Therefore, just a plain balance of my wallets isn't very indicative for me. Well, some amount of tokens. Unless, damn, I don't use these tokens somewhere else. In this sense. And just the portfolio itself. Well, maybe someone might be interested. So what else? Looks great. So. Does the wallet have an interactive mode to run just one or several commands and scripts, or any PPO? Look, no, there's nothing like that. The idea is very interesting, but you need to think it through because, look, if you're trying to run a series of commands, I have a question. Do any of them require transaction signing? If any of them require signing transactions, I wouldn't want the script to be able to execute them. But it won't be able to execute them because to perform signing with a key, it requires human involvement. And if the commands don't require signing, if they're purely informational, well, for example, to give some other software the ability to access my wallet and get some balance lists, for example, or a list of addresses. Maybe you can, but don't forget that you're creating a hole in your security. That is, you always need to remember that we're not just talking about a program, we're talking about a crypto wallet. This means that under all these numbers lies real value, which has no ownership. I'm very meticulous about ensuring that, God forbid, no one learns anything extra or, God forbid, spoils anything. So, what else? I want, for example, to display the entire portfolio. Yes, that's all correct. Prices in portfolio, probably because many people always want to see how much, as they say in America, how much I'm worth. How much I have in total. But for me, personally, this number isn't very interesting. I can probably even explain why, because I don't believe in it. That is, even if all my balances are calculated and some beautiful number appears, I fully understand that I don't have it, that these are just numbers. That even if I sell everything today, I won't even get that number. Therefore, I think psychologically, maybe it's interesting to someone. When we show my gain in the third version of liquidity, that's real money. I can press the button today. I'll probably make a button right here to get that profit. That's a real thing. Well, and the balance is such. Well, as I said, my real value is in different contracts. It's in different places and not on my addresses. Therefore, just getting a portfolio from my addresses probably won't work. That is, you need some additional. I'll make the third version if I make it in the second version. Then I'll make some module to get everything from farming. And maybe there are a couple of places I won't talk about because there are some tricky companies. Neither this, nor that, nor the third. And if you put it all together, then you can kind of see this magic number. But again, I say I don't have such a goal. Which doesn't require human involvement. You can easily make scripts. Yes, that's not a problem. If I want, I can fully follow in JavaScript, whip it up right inside. It's really not a problem. Because there are ways to do it very easily. So seeing the active total balance is one thing, and two is seeing used or unused tokens. Yes, this thing is more important to me. I'm telling you seriously, when I did this discovery for the third version, I wasn't making it up. Put all my wallets there and found that there was one position I really forgot about. I just don't remember it. A long time ago, I put it there. Some profit accumulated and I forgot about it. So this wallet has already brought me profit. So which blockchains are a priority to connect and support? That is, all blockchains that can be accessed through the Web3 interface. Nothing else is planned for now. Honestly, the most interesting blockchains to me are EVM blockchains. That's one thing, it's a limitation. But it's also a plus that any blockchain supporting the EVM standard can connect today because they all have the same standard interface. So basically, all Avalanches, all Binances, they all work today in this summer hour. Let's say everything that works with MetaMask works with this wallet too. So, well, I guess we're out of questions. Let's wrap it up then. Thank you so much for gathering. It was a pleasure to talk about all this. I live for this. Not that it's the main thing I live for, but it's a significant part, and I hope the conversation was interesting. Write if you find this format interesting. We can meet periodically. Well, today is a big day for me. I became a YouTuber because I did my first YouTube stream. On that note, we're parting ways. Thank you all very much.